Hey everyone, we're going to give some other folks just a few more minutes to join us before we get started. Thanks for being here this morning. Welcome back to our Carrier Product Update series. I'm your host, Jason Powers, here with Legacy Brokers, and I've got Tom Stein from American Trust Administrators with me today. Excited to share content about their product and AmeriShare with you. Before we get started, if you're not familiar with Legacy Brokers, you're going to get familiar with American Trust here shortly. But if you're not familiar with us here at Legacy Brokers, we're a general agency located in the Kansas City market, but our reach is really on a national basis. I think we've got producers in 17 states across the country. And our whole mission really is to support everything that health insurance agents are doing out in the market. Our specialty is group health insurance, and really our focus in that group health arena is on self-funded group health plans. Our staff here is a great team of resources available for all agents to help you build, protect, and preserve your book of business out in the market. I got my start in this industry in 2000, actually working at American Trust Administrators. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
I was the national sales director at ATA. I've also served in various roles in the health underwriters. If you're not a member of health underwriters, I certainly encourage you to consider joining. It's always been a great asset to me, with plenty of great contacts and good network available throughout. I also serve as an investment committee chair on the board of directors for Barton Mutual Insurance Company. That's about as close to the PNC as I come. I don't generally do anything else in the PNC world. And when I'm not doing what I do here at Legacy, or I'm not in the insurance world, I spend a lot of time on the soccer fields with 4 boys that are all in some way connected to the game of soccer. And then the rest of whatever energy I have left, I give to my wife of the last 42 years. Today, I've got with me a good friend of mine who come to know and respect over the last 10 years, Tom Stein from American Trust.
Hey, how are you? My name's Tom. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, a little bit about me. I basically took Jason's chair at American Trust Administrators as the National Director of Business Development. I am a lifetime kind of TPA guy. My first sales call was in 8th grade with my dad. So at this point, I've got a bit of experience. Still learning the ropes, but every day we get a little bit better. You went into a little demographic. I am happily married, beautiful wife, little dog that's 85 pounds, little of me, I guess. But yeah, life is good here in Kansas City, and yeah, my picture up there with me on a camel, which I don't know, life's an adventure, so you got to go live it. So, but yeah,
I'm excited to have you here. And this isn't your first time on. You've been you're a return guest for us.
an honored guest.
Yeah, honored guest.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like it's kind of like the Saturday Night Live honor, right? You know, this is your 3rd time on the show.
And I was actually wondering, as we walked in here, are we going to put people who have been on the podcast, right?
That's a great idea.
Right?
Right? Line the wall with all the pictures of the
Hall of Honor.
That's
Yeah.
right. I love the idea. Building out the studio. Well, now that you know a little bit about Tom and I, it's a great time to tell us about yourself. So in just a moment, our DJ Josh is going to launch a poll to ask you some questions about who you are. How would you define your role or responsibility as a licensed insurance agent in the world of insurance? And this helps us, I think, really just determine, you know, as we build out content throughout the year, how do we really best serve the agents that are coming to our events, logging into our carrier product update series, so that we can really understand your business model, which helps us understand how to better serve those agents.
Sure.
All right, we'll give it just a few more seconds here. And go ahead and end that poll for me, Josh. Looks like we've got about 57% participating in the poll, and half of those are group health insurance agents. So that's great. We got some other industry professionals on, so we appreciate your joining us this morning. Let's stop there. All right. This is our carrier product update series. Throughout the year, we have other events. Just as you registered for this event, you can register for all our events on our website at legacybrokerskc.com under the events tab. You'll see there on the screen, we've got another upcoming carrier product update episode with our carrier product update series with Beam Dental. And then we launch straight into our CE classes, starting with Self-Funded University. It's a 3-part series starting on April 13th through April 27th, every Wednesday from there on. 3 weeks in a row. We'll start with Self-Funded University Part 1, which is the basics of self-funding. The Part 2 is how to read and analyze self-funding quotes, and then we'll wrap it up on the 3rd week with Part 3, where we dive into how to read and analyze self-funded claims reports, because they're not all the same. Process for today, you are not playing Wordle. You are on mute though. We are in a Zoom environment. We do want you to participate though. So if you've got questions relative to the topic today, be sure to use the Q&A feature in the Zoom app controls at the bottom of your screen. You can also use the chat feature to chat with Josh behind the scenes about any technical issues you might be having with sound or video. And then if you just want to chime in, you have any questions, feel free to use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and Josh will bring you on live, unmute you so that you can ask and get your questions answered directly from Tom here from ATA.
I'll do my best.
After today, if you have questions for me, feel free to reach out. I think you've been on some of our past episodes or past CE classes. You should have my contact information. You probably get lots of emails from me throughout the year. Be sure to join the conversation on LinkedIn by following Legacy Brokers on LinkedIn. We do share a lot of our content in that capacity. So not only email, but also follow us on LinkedIn. Don't forget to give us a 5-star Google review. I say this every time. We certainly appreciate the reviews that we've had so far. And if you like what you see here, it certainly helps us to continue to deliver good content to other agents across the country. And for a myriad of reasons, continue to use our website, legacybrokerskc.com, for other resources. When we finish this video, we'll actually post it to the Carriers tab. Under the Carriers tab, we'll post to ATA's page this video, along with supporting marketing documentation and other materials that will certainly aid your ability to sell ATA's product. So ATA, we talk about it, ATAamerica.com is the site, American Trust Administrators is the company, AmeriShare is the product. For those that don't know who ATA is, Tom, who's ATA?
Well, ATA is a small family-oriented and owned TPA and MGU in Kansas City. We serve across the country, but we are independent. That's the biggest thing that we have, is we are an independent shop. We do things our way, which allows us to do some really crazy, beautiful things with plan design, with how we handle our refunds, with how we handle multi-year retention. There's some really cool things that we're able to do because we stay independent, because we stay in like a family-oriented company. Like I said, mentioned earlier, my first sales call was with my dad, Big Tom. And we've been in this space, actually this year, ATA turns 50.
Wow.
So pretty exciting. We covered helicopters at first, not self-funding, but a little different transition there. But yeah. We've been doing the self-funding, especially the small group self-funding, for about 36 years. So we're, if not the oldest, I don't know who's been doing the small group stuff for longer. But on that customizable vein, we've got multiple options that we can run, whether it be deductibles, co-insurance, drug cards, spec terms, ag terms. The reason why we do all those things is that we try to make it, for the trained GA and trained broker, as easy to lift from where they currently are to where they want to be. And so by offering these options, they can get a true apples to apples. And then it's, hey, it's not, this is a different deductible, this is a different drug card, but it's a different price. It's everything's the same, and we're still better off. And then when you get deeper into the weeds, this is where we kind of shine, is you have a much lower fixed cost. And for those of you out there who are newer to self-funded or level funded, there's always, and I'm probably going to do the university, obviously, but there's two categories of cost, with fixed and claims. And whenever you look at ours, we'll have a pretty big spread compared to others of our fixed account and our claims account. We have a lot of money going into claims. I know I'm talking a lot here, Jason, but
no, I would say that's probably your biggest differentiator, right? I mean, if you're comparing to the book, it's the big big carrier model plans.
Sure.
Would you agree that it really comes down to how they structure their fixed costs versus how you
Sure. And the other thing is, that structure is huge, absolutely. And what it allows you to do is look multi-year, because at one point, if you're just looking, all right, I've got 10 grand in my claims account, okay, no big deal. Hey, I've got 40. All of a sudden, you're ballasted against all of these increases that are coming year 1, year 2, year 3. So you are able to keep your cases in the same place. And by doing that, as the broker, you have great opportunities to add additional products, or you go out and prospect more because you have more time, because you're not getting hammered.
Yeah.
That's the approach we've always taken. It's a longer term approach, but it's something we're proud of.
Yeah, and you know, on the screen here, we're talking. You guys always refund 100% the unused claims dollars.
That's right.
And I think that's another differentiator for AmeriShare versus some of the other carrier models. Is there's always some catch where, okay, the group had a great year, and then they got a 10% increase, and the only way that they can get the money out of their surplus is if they take the 10% increase with ATA and the AmeriShare product. That's not true.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome is what you're really looking at. Is, hey, it's your money, but you got to give us more of it to get it back.
Yeah,
that's kind of hostage a little bit. We don't do that. We never have. As long as the Stein's in charge, we never will. That's something that really goes back to a fundamental principle, which is it's not our money. It's the plan's money. It's the business owner's money. It's not ours. So as long as we make sure that we keep that going, then we're going to be better off long term. I mean, it would be nice for us to do that, but I don't have a jet. I don't need one.
Well, you mentioned it too. I think it allows a producer to build out a multi-year strategy with those groups that do end up having a surplus at the end of a good planning year, instead of having to bounce around year.
Yeah.
And then reporting. We actually cover ATA's reports in our self-funded university part 3. We actually take a deep dive into the claims reports.
Cool. All right.
What's the frequency on that?
So we do it quarterly. And remember, on your claims reports, you're going to have a thing called IBNR. You know, I'm getting nerdy here. I am a nerd about this stuff. So really, the first quarter when you get that, you're really only going to have RX on there. Sure. And then it basically catches up. That's why you're going to want to put your plans on a longer than 12-month contract, because you have that window. When you start looking at those reports, the third quarter's report, you can get a pretty good idea of where they're going to be on their claims account utilization, and then from there, where they're going to be for the renewal. Yeah. So if you stay ahead of these things, life becomes so much easier. And we give you the reports so that you can choose to.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's ATA as a company that we've kind of talked about the product a little bit. What it's AmeriShare. It's always been AmeriShare. Mm-hmm. What's the differentiator there in the product?
In the product itself, you know, the big thing that we do is that this is a good and a bad thing. Everything's a trade-off. We underwrite medically to the individual, which and I'll hit the negative first. From the negative standpoint is it's a little bit more time consuming, right? From the positive standpoint is it gives you a more accurate idea of where those claim dollars are actually going to go. And so by doing that, you have a more accurate price point, and because you have a implied loss ratio by state regulations, you have more money inside of those claims accounts. And so there's a long-winded way of saying that we price it accurately. Yeah. And because we price it accurately, that additional dollar is going to come back to you because we refund 100%. So if you do a little bit more work up front, it pays in spades down the channel. That's a huge deal on our product. It's a huge deal on why people stay with us, is that work up front pays dividends for years down the road. A couple other things that kind of best fits for clients. We have a 5 minimum in a lot of states. Some states it's a little different. 5 is kind of the baseline. And this isn't unique to ATA, but in level funding, you want to have somebody with moderate to good health, right? And then you also want an average age of somewhere below 50. The further you get down, the better off you're going to be. Sure. And then the other one is you want to have a stable company. And again, that's important for looking down the road. A lot of the things that we do in our plan design and on our underwriting is trying to stay ahead of problems rather than just saying yes and then buying problems 3, 6, 8 months down the road. We'd rather be a little bit tougher up front, and then have a longer term relationship with that client and that broker. Because at the end of the day, there's always going to be issues if you don't do the work up front. So if you do the work up front, you can stay ahead of so many, and life is so much easier.
Yeah, I'd say the other product differential, I think, in the market from Ameriship is the flexibility in the plan. It's not like some of the other carrier models where we get a grid of the plans that we can choose from. There really is a lot of flexibility in ATA's approach, and the refund piece is probably the biggest one. I think for agents that are selling self-funded in the market, knowing that ATA is going to do what's right by the client by returning the plan assets back to the plan instead of keeping a portion of that. That's just that settles itself on a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And speaking on the spreadsheet, and we were chatting about this beforehand, but I love this. We have all of our plans are customized, right? And there's over 1 million options if you put it all together for your plan design, which I'm not saying that you're not one in a million, but come on, right?
Right.
Like there's a ton of options for you out there. And so, we can find one that will work for their specific situation. And from a sales standpoint, we can match what they currently have, that's much easier from the sales process standpoint to say, I've got apples to apples.
So we hear, and we probably talk about groups and their ability to get refunds. I know some agents look at some of the carrier model plans and don't really talk about the potential for refund because of the way the fixed cost is structured. But with ATA, we talk about the potential for the refund and surplus dollars. What's the average?
Well, you got it up there, right? And we're very proud of this, right? And what we have is, this is 2018, 2019, there was a little bit better percentage, a little lower dollar amount. That's a lot of money. If you look at a 20-man group and you go into the business owner and you say, all right, I've got 13 grand here for you. That's the difference between him having to change the amount that he's paying for his employee benefits, or it could be him buying a brand new, fork truck. I don't know what fork truck costs, but you get my point, right? More than 13. So maybe 3 jet skis.
Yeah.
Like you're putting something back in his pocket. From the broker standpoint, when you walk in with that amount of money, you're no longer the guy selling him something. You're a partner. I mean, you're delivering value that nobody else is even talking about. And if that guy doesn't love you at that point, well, I don't know how you're going to get that guy to love you. Like that's a huge deal. And on our traditional plans, we have, I believe it was 72% in 2019, which by the nature of runout, it's the most recent data we have. And that's incredible, right? Like the amount of things that you can do from a secondary sales standpoint, the amount of things that you can do from building that relationship with a broker with those dollars that are the plan's dollars, right? It's their money anyway. You're putting it back in their pocket. They get to direct it. They get to add additional benefits for their employees. Everybody's freaked out about employees leaving right now. Well, why don't we not change cash flow and give them more benefits? Right? This doesn't, right?
I mean, if you think of what 13,000 would represent in a small employer, who's probably, on the generous side, the employer may pay $300 a month for an employee to have benefits.
Sure.
That's 3 more employees they can afford to pay for. What does that do for their growth? What does it do for their company to add 3 more employees that they're providing benefits for without changing the bottom line?
Yeah.
Instead adding those employees maybe it increases production for them where they can generate more revenue.
Or maybe it reduces turnover, which helps. ATA, we're blessed. We have very long-term employees, right? And some of that I think is, I think we take pretty good care of our people. And that makes us more effective. If you can get out there and retain the people that are already on your team, life is so much easier, so much easier. And this is just another option for you to utilize. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to buy it against next year's, renewal or anything along those lines. It's your money. Now, you want to use it inside of the, benefit trust agreement, some other technical stuff, but it's your money.
Well, we talked, the AmeriShare is a flexible plan and, you know, as a general agency, I think we see somewhere north of 500-600 RFPs a year, maybe more than that. Just, there are quite a few cases that we're looking at places. And one of the things that's really easy to do with some of the other carrier models is just look at a plan grid. Here's, you know, here are 3 options that kind of fit what you're looking for from a plan design. But with ATA, you mentioned, you know, 1.5 million different variations. That's a lot of plan design. So I mean, it really is customized. There's not a bronze, silver, gold, platinum kind of level plans. It's you can mix and match.
Just you're 100% right there. So it's you choose the easiest from a sales process. The easiest way to go is if you have existing coverage.
Sure.
Let's match it. Let's keep it, really simple and say, all right, you're with a fully insured carrier and you're on X, Y, and Z. Well, if we move you over to a self-funded, level-funded model, what's the difference? Right. And then you also have to keep in mind the claims account. And that's the easiest way to go from a new virgin group, which these really small groups, there's a lot of people who are having to offer health coverage to their troops simply because they're having that crazy turnover. And so you go into them and say, all right, here's what you have. Here's what you think it's going to cost from the fully insured type. Let's go ahead and produce something and let's play with the plan design for what specifically goes on inside of that group. And yes, it's a little bit more research for the broker to go in and talk to the business owner. But again, we're looking long term here.
Yeah.
You know, one more conversation, getting something a little bit better, stays ahead of noise, stays ahead of those issues that cause people to shop. You know, if they're happy, they're not moving.
Yeah.
So let's do the work up front and then keep them happy.
Well, we cover in our one of our CE classes we teach the basics of group health insurance. Another one is the group healthcare strategy, and both of those classes we teach the discovery need, how critical it is to really be on the same side of the table as the employer.
Mm-hmm.
What you draw from in coming back to AmeriShare as a product option is if an employer says, employees love the plan, I just wish we could get a little bit lower out of pocket. You know, the deductible at $1,500, that's perfect. Gosh, can we get a plan that doesn't have an $8,100 out of pocket? And if you're looking at some of the carrier model plans, they're predetermined.
Sure.
At an actuarial value of bronze, silver, gold, platinum, whatever it is. With ATA, AmeriShare, you could go in and customize that out of pocket. You could drop the out of pocket. You can change the co-insurance levels. You can change the co-pays. You can put a different drug card in. You put a really rich drug card in with a really high deductible plan.
Yeah.
You can do the opposite. You can, again, 1.5 million different variations. I don't think a lot of times when I say that to agents, they don't grasp it. Knowing what we see in the quoting system, we can run it.
Yeah, you can continually try to build something that's more accurate to the needs of the client. And that's the end of the day. Like, you want to build something as perfect to the client as possible. And so the better you get it, the more likely are they that they're going to be happy, and the more likely that you're going to have a long-term relationship with that client. And then year over year, you can go back and serve it. Everybody knows sales is easy. Prospecting is ridiculously tough, right? So if you have your clients, let's help you keep them, right? Because prospect, yeah, you get the point. You get the point.
And it may not be a plan design issue. It may not be deductible or co-insurance. It might be a network issue, right?
That's right.
And that's another place where you guys fill in the blanks.
Yeah, we play with multiple different PPOs. It depends on where you are for which one works. We have, oh man, I can't even tell you how many PPO contracts we have, but we have a bunch. And so you can plug and play wherever feels appropriate, feels like the best need for your client. That's where the GA comes in, because you guys are going to know the local data and know what that client needs right there. In addition to that, we also have RVP, which we've been doing RVP for a while. It is a very good solution sometimes, and it's very tough sometimes. But again, if you set the table, it can be a great long-term solution. The big issue is how do you set the table, and how do you stay ahead of the issues that are going to pop up.
Yeah.
I was speaking with a broker out of Jackson Hole, right? He wanted to look at an RVP option, and it was not a good fit, simply because Jackson Hole doesn't have, RVP providers. So it's a
Fold them once.
exactly.
Yeah, a lot of providers are in those rural markets push back, make it difficult. But I think the tools that you guys have got available. We'll talk about one of them here in a moment. Tools that you guys have got available in the RVP space. The fact that you've been in that space, you're not new to that space. You've been doing it for a while now. Should give brokers that are just now coming around to the concept of RVP, which is taking away the network, reimbursing providers after the services are rendered at a percentage of Medicare. And then if there's pushback, negotiating with the provider from there to really settle on what's fair for that service in that market. Versus starting with a PPO contract that's predetermined and is some variation of a discount off of a rack rate.
So it's you have it actually perfectly correct. It's you have the PPOs, which is a negotiated contract ahead of time, and then it's almost like a big circle where innovation goes in a big circle in our industry, and RVP is like indemnity on a different pricing structure. It's not perfect, but in some situations it works really well. In some it doesn't. I wouldn't do it, but if you know ahead of time, stay ahead of it. Again, you're looking for long-term service with your clients, and that's what we've got on. I think we're going to cover the amino, right?
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Yeah. Cool new feature that I'm super excited about is those are the kind of questions you get from agents. Well, how do I know what providers are going to be RVP? You mentioned indemnity, which is funny because I can nerd out about why would we never want to quote an indemnity plan, but here we are quoting RVP, which is a variation of an indemnity. There was no contract,
right?
There's no contract on the front end, but now we got a tool to negotiate with those providers on the back end and success in using that tool. As a general agency, we've got multiple cases across the country that are using RVP, they're using it successfully. They do have this, but you've got ways to help out. Speaking of nerding out, I can nerd out about self-funded, right? The other thing that I really like about the customization in the AmeriShare rule is that it's not just a one-size-fits-all level funded program. Now, brokers that are out there that are just kind of getting comfortable with level funding, you have the ability to build. We have the ability to build that product in a level funded space, but that's not all you do.
And that's it. And when we go back to, we had the slide up there a minute ago with the refund. And so those dollars are inside of a thing called benefit customer. So how do you utilize those dollars in the most effective way? This is where most people start to look at true or self-fund with stop loss programs, where they'll do their claims as needed, right, or as incurred. And so what you have is a different way to run the exact same plan, where you can use last year's dollars against current year's expenses, and that's incredible, right? And it's real simple, but it's called minimum funding. And I don't want to scare anybody. It's a simple program. You're using money from previous years, and most of the time, or if you have a client that is financially savvy enough, right? So think CPAs, think financial services firms. They understand accrual accounting, and you can run it as a minimum base. And then as long as they put that money, at least a portion of it aside, as like an unfunded liability that they'll fund on their own books, then you've got a way to move forward through it without having to have all those dollars go to the plan. So there's multiple options to do these things, and we open them up for the client. And again, it goes back to the broker and how deeply they want to serve the customer and how much the need is there for them to realize cash flow at certain times. And again, we're open to it.
Yeah,
our chassis is open.
Yeah, so I mean, we talk about it in our self-funding university that there's different models, the level funded versus say an ASO or a pay-as-you-go kind of model. That minimum funded capability in AmeriShare really speaks to that pay-as-you-go. It could be cash flow, it could be a number of reasons that an employer would be sophisticated enough to want to go down that path. level fund is almost that train, like the self-funding on training wheels, and then moving into the pay-as-you-go model that is AmeriShare's minimum funded options. It's a great tool to build out a long-term strategy with a client versus getting stuck in that. Again,
Sure.
Yeah, are you being held hostage to that self-funded plan because there's a refund coming only if you take the increase at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And that's certainly a big differentiator for ATA. So we hinted at it, and I'm excited about it because I do pay attention on it. You released notes to the field on LinkedIn, and it caught my eye because it was something new about RVP, and I know you guys are really out front being innovators in that space. So talk to us about Amino.
Sure. So
Victoria's not here to bail you out.
I know, right? She's our in-house expert. For those of you who saw us on LinkedIn, Victoria Armstrong, she's great. In fact, I believe you hired her.
I did.
So she's sticking around. Don't you dare. But she walked us through the Amino program, and we've got a couple RVP providers. This one is with Zealous, and they use the Amino program. And what we can do is ahead of time, like the broker that was working in Jackson, we can look and see if it's going to be a decent fit, or if it's going to be one that we probably want to avoid unless there's absolute necessity on cost. And so whenever you're looking at a group, and let's say that they are very price sensitive, they need lower cost. Okay, RVP is one of those options that can be a pretty big cost reduction, right? But you want to stay ahead of it from a relationship standpoint from the broker, because RVP can be very noisy. So if you look at a tool like Amino, when you jump on there and you type in the zip code, you say, all right, I'm looking for X, Y, or Z, you can see which providers in that geographic area have already accepted an RVP reimbursement, right? They're not contract, no, but these are ones that it's basically like almost saying a safe harbor. If you go here, you're going to be okay. And if you communicate that with your employees from the business owner standpoint, or from your clients from the broker standpoint, and they're going to have less noise overall. Sure. You're going to have a better experience, and they're going to have a longer retention rate, which I know I talk about retention all the time. That's our business model. We retain things.
You're building intelligence, right? You're taking the market, what the market's giving, as far as feedback on the RVP model, and building out from a user experience in a PPO model. What is the user supposed to do? Make sure you stay in network. Well, how do you do that? Well, you got to go to this website. You got to look up the providers. So as an industry, we've conditioned members over the last 25 years to go to a website, look up your providers. That's who you can go to. In an RVP model, we said, you can go anywhere. You don't have to worry about it. You can go anywhere. And what happens is then we get market feedback from the provider community saying, well, we're not going to agree to 125% of Medicare or 150% of Medicare. We want 220% of Medicare or some other variation. With Amino, what we found is that, Josh, go ahead and pull that up. So you can actually go in, register for an account, which I've already done, and look up providers by location. So just for go to primary care. I've already done this. If you need help as a broker out there in the community doing it, we can certainly get you connected. Not a difficult process whatsoever. It took me all of 3 minutes by the time I verified my email. So Josh is pulling up here primary care providers in the Lenexa area, where I've got, here's some providers right here that are A-rated on the RVP scale, meaning that they've already experienced an RVP reimbursement model, and they're open to it, and they didn't push back. B, in this rating scale, is they gave a little bit of pushback. They didn't take the first offer, but they did end up settling at a more reasonable offer than PPO. And then you've got some other graded scales in there. And it doesn't matter what service you're looking for. I picked on primary care, but there's other services you can look at. You can look by location, you can look at by type of provider, and you can do this throughout the country. And as as Amino continues to build that data,
it only gets richer. It only gets better.
What does it become? It becomes a direct.
Yeah.
It's not saying that they're contract. there's still a possibility that an A-rated RVP provider in this search will come back and balance bill, but the likelihood is probably less.
Yeah.
So they're not contracted. That goes against the RVP
The
model.
bigger deal from a long-term standpoint, from an industry standpoint, is the more that we steer consumption to these primary care providers, the more they're going to be familiar with it, the more they're just going to accept it as a practice, right? And so it's almost as if we're building a PPO network without having to pay for these PPO fees that crank up the cost of the plan, and without having to reimburse these higher levels, which again crank up the cost of the plan for the plan owner. So by doing the steerage, it makes it richer over time for the end user or the member, and it gives you less noise at a better cost. So again, RVP can be perfect. It also can be very troublesome. It depends on where you are. So use the tool ahead of time and then figure out if it's going to be good for your client.
If you're thinking about RVP on a quote, if you've got quotes with RVP from us here at Legacy, particularly when you're using ATA's AmeriShare product, don't forget to register for Amino so that you can do some front work, right? Do some work on the front end to educate members about how to use the tool, where they can go, what providers would give them less noise and less pushback. And even on my side, I was able to look up my provider and realize that the doctor that I go to in the PPO model would probably give some pushback based on the clinic they're affiliated with. So it gives me pause to consider, well, maybe there's a reason for me to look at RVP later for my own healthcare providers. Looks like we got a question from Mark Williams. What percentage of providers in the typical market are open to this model? Do we have any data on that?
I don't have a hard answer to that. Open to it or accepting it on Amino are two separate things, right? The Amino is not going to be a perfect catch. So if you have penetration in there where you've got a list of providers for the metro area, like Lenexa, which is a suburb of Kansas City, for those of you not familiar, there's 26, I believe, listed. That seems rich to me. Yeah. If you are in, Mark, where are you?
Springfield.
Springfield. Would you mind?
Yeah, Mark, we bring you on. Oh, doing a search in Springfield. Yeah, so go back.
We're doing a quick search.
Edit location. Oh, I think I clicked that edit location.
And we haven't done this, so this is our first time here. Springfield. If we look at Springfield, we have
37 total.
37 total.
5 no A rates. We got B rates. So they at least
they have accepted it.
They've accepted it. Maybe not first pass, but they certainly accepted.
That's right. So on this one, yeah, I think Springfield would be something that I'd be open to if I was in Springfield, just by looking at the PCP or primary care providers. If you have specific other needs, the Amino will look for that as well. But yeah, that's basically the hurdle, is that if you can get over the first hurdle and say, hey, Springfield's pretty good. Another way to think about it in general, this is a way before Amino that I thought about it, is if you have multiple hospital systems in one town, then you're going to be better off. If you only have one provider, it's not a good, in general, it's not a good fit. Just historically with ATA, that's where we've seen the most noise, when there's only one game in town. And it's a tough thing to negotiate with, because they always say, well, where are you going?
Yeah.
So use the Amino, and then from a hospital system, I'd really recommend having at least 2 hospital systems. Yeah. You can play them off each other.
Which is great for Springfield.
There are two. There are two Springfield.
They're across the street from each other.
Yeah, they love each other too, is what I hear.
Yeah. That's a great question. So outside of RVP and Amino, I know, and I guess in addition to something that you teased on the last time you were here was this new pilot, level funded pilot program. And we couldn't really talk about it too much. We kind of tease about it, and it's out there. We have access to it here at Legacy. which means that our brokers have access to it. What can you tell me about this new level funded pilot now that I have logged in?
This is my baby, right?
password?
Yeah. So been working on this for quite some time. And what the pilot does is it produces a couple of things that are very actionable for the plan owner or the broker, right? And we try to make it as simple as possible. So all the information that the business owner should have at their disclosure right there without having to go to the members, right? So you enter the census, you ask a couple of questions. And again, some of these are trying to stay ahead of problems down the road, right? You figure out their SIC, their zip, and there you go. You put these in there and you ask a couple of questions like, have they had medical insurance? What we're really looking for there is it a virgin group, right? Is the workforce stable? What we're looking for there is massive participation changes, right? Like lawn care companies, not a good idea, right?
Yeah. You're looking for turnover.
Exactly,
right? The revolving door of employees coming in every 3 months.
And is it, just continually cycling. So these are all questions that the business owner and the broker can answer themselves, right? We're trying to reduce the amount of unrealized work that the broker does. So then you ask that one question, which is how healthy is the group? And when you produce all of this together, it produces a level funded score, right? And that level funded score also produces a report that goes to the broker and the business owner and says, hey, you've got these conditions, and it's all dynamic, right? It all reads what you put into it. You have these conditions, you have this zip code, you have this industry, you have a fairly good score of working with level funded, or you're a terrible candidate. Well, we're not pulling punches here, right? We're letting the broker know which candidates are best fit for level funding and which ones should probably be on a full insured, right? Again, we're trying to save them time. And then this is the big one. It loads an indication quote that goes out to the broker where it says, here's what it's going to be, or roughly where it's going to be. You still need to do underwriting, but it allows them to say, all right, this load, this industry characteristics, everything else, here's the rough score, and here's where we think they're going to land. Then you know as the broker, hey, do I chase this rabbit?
Yeah.
Or are they already better with where they are?
It's a great kind of pre-qualification. Think in terms like a credit score. You're talking about a level funded score now, right? So this is this doesn't mean that it's been medically underwritten. They still have to go through the apps. They still may have telephone interviews depending on what underwriting comes back with after reviewing applications. But so many times I get asked, do you think this group would be a good prospect for level funded? Or I get the broker telling me, I think this is gonna be a great prospect for level funded. Well, let's put it to the test. Right? Let's see what ATA system comes back with, because there are certain things that why is industry important, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, so industries, again, we're getting kind of nerdy, but
go for it.
I'm on it, right?
Dive in.
So you have your SIC, and what that says is the ratings either up or down over manual for the risk inside of that industry. An easy way to explain it would be, hey, if everybody's a CrossFitter, Billy's a little overweight. Well, what's that mean? Oh, he's got an extra 6 pounds. Okay, that's one thing. I'm not, this is my example here, I'm not picking on anybody. Or, hey, Billy's a little overweight in the trucking industry. That's a completely different mental picture, right? And that's a great way to think about how the SIC affects basically what the industry standards are, and how that affects how the business owner is going to answer that final question as well, which is what is the health of the group? Well, everybody compares it to their own cohort, right? And again, I'm getting nerdy on underwriting here, but like if you ask the questions and you frame it in the frame that they're currently in, you get more accurate information, and we can save the broker more time on targeting the specific clients that are going to be able to be served and win by going with level fund. That's the grail, man.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not that the broker or the employer has to go out and ask a lot of questions on the front end. This is all stuff that they should have access to right away. If it's a broker that this is their current client, you probably know something, right? Is your phone ringing off the hook on this group in their current fully insured plan because someone's having trouble getting prior authorization on a $6,000 monthly medication? It's probably not a good prospect.
Yeah, right.
Self-funded. I mean, it could be depending on the right PBM tools that you implement.
Plan design, everything else.
Plan design. But generally speaking, that would be something we want to know on the front end to see if they are a good prospect. Because going through that underwriting process, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough. And so I love this idea. I love the fact that we've got access to it now. And I love the fact we're introducing and rolling it out to our brokers here in 2022. So if you've got a prospect who you're looking at today and you're thinking, is this a good fit for level funding? Ask for the new level funded pilot from PTA. We'll produce the scores and get you an idea what that looks like, so that you have something tangible. Now that you can go back and talk to that group about why you think they're a good fit for level funding, or why probably shouldn't go through this process, instead of you looking at some of the.
That's the other way, is that you can also use it to protect yourself from the broker standpoint. Hey, I've got 50 clients. I've only done fully insured in the past. Let's see which ones are a good candidate. Well, everybody talks. You move 15 over, and somebody talks to John and says, "I saved 20% this year. Why didn't you move me over?" Well, we talked about it. Here's your report. Here's why it's not a good fit. It's a credibility piece as well to the broker, and protecting themselves against being a BOR, which is the bane of every broker's system.
Yeah. So a reminder of what a good prospect looks like, what a good fit for ATA.
Sure.
We're looking at that smaller group space.
That's right. So 5 to 50, generally good health. And we need a company that is stable in terms of its workforce, right? Again, we're trying to stay ahead of problems. We try to look for the very long term. And if we can stay ahead of these issues, you're going to like us more as the broker, and so does the plan owner. So if you hit those 3 things, run them through the pilot and see what the score is, and then we can shake it down the tree.
Love it. A lot of exciting stuff just in the last few weeks that we've talked about. And I know in the turn of the fourth quarter, we've got a new stop loss carrier, new PM. Yep. What's on the horizon for ATA?
The future's on the horizon. What we're working on, and I've got a couple of things that are going to be improvements to the pilot that I'm still working on daily, that will allow for even better efficiency for the brokers, where you can know which cases are going to be more helpable and less helpable. Additionally, we have a couple of other things on plan design standpoint that will, you mentioned kind of one with some RX stuff. Again, this is in the future, but if you can't get excited about the future, I don't know what you get excited about. So
you don't have to spill any secrets here. We can talk about it. I know there's some good stuff you're working on. I'm excited about it. It's ATA has always been a company that I feel like serves a need in the industry that isn't filled in some of the bigger carrier model plans, and the groups that we've got that have been through, most recently a group that went through renewal, had surplus, got a fair no change renewal on their claims exposure. Actually have a little bit of a reduction on the fixed cost side of things, which is unheard of in most cases when you're talking about 11 miles.
Yeah.
Right. And then to know that they've got that surplus coming back as a refund because they max funded their liability, choosing to use that to really offset what they're putting in this year. They're not putting in as much. Now they've switched to minimum funded, and they're using the surplus to kind of circumvent their liabilities and only fund as needed. Those are strategic, creative things that you can do in the insured product. You just can't do with some of these other level funded programs. So super excited to continue our partnership and work toward launching whatever may come out of the ideas inside that brain.
Well, we continue to get better, and we enjoy working with you guys, and it's life's good. It's good. So
at this point, this kind of wraps up our presentation here. If you've got questions, feel free to ask those now. Raise your hand or throw them in the Q&A. If you raise your hand, I know that we'll bring you on live and let you ask Tom directly. If you have questions after today, don't forget to reach out to me. You've got my contact info on the screen. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. We'll post snips of this actual product update, career product update on our LinkedIn. We'll actually post a link back to our website for the full video. You can also leave us a 5-star Google review. Can't stress that enough. Love those Google reviews. Be sure to check out our website for additional resources. We'll post additional marketing materials that are definitely beneficial in your efforts when you're selling ATA's product. We got one final question for everyone out there. Josh will launch that here. And this one is, how can we connect after today? Just let us know if you want to be contacted in some capacity after today. We'll be sure to reach out. Otherwise, be sure to join us for our next carrier product update coming up. Again, event registration link on our website. We're going to be talking to Joe Colarossi from Beam Dental. It'll be the first time he's ever visited Kansas City. I'm excited to have him in. And then we go straight into our CE series, self-funded university, starting April 13th. All right, and go ahead and end that poll for me, Josh. Tom, again, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you for the gift that you brought in on the front end. I totally forgot about our conversation about that. Look forward to seeing what's coming from ATA in the future. If you want to take a look at an AmeriShare proposal, or you want to look at the level funded pilot score on your next prospect, be sure to reach out. Otherwise, we'll see you. Oh, we do have another question coming in.
Facilities.
Are there any facilities in Kansas City that will not accept RVP? Yes.
Yeah.
There are facilities that do not accept reference-based pricing. It's always good to know who those are. I couldn't list them off to you individually, but there are facilities across the country that are not accepting reference-based pricing. And what's critical, I think, to know about in the product, your side of things, is that you guys have you've got the back of the employer, so you're working with third-party companies like Zealous, like 6 Degrees, like these RVP adjudicators, to then go negotiate those services after they've been rendered with those facilities that don't accept
RVP.
And when we say they don't accept RVP, all we're saying is they're not taking the first offer.
Yeah.
Right. There's a negotiation back and forth with the facility to settle on what they'll accept as payment.
That's right.
Oftentimes where you end up with a facility like that is probably right back at PPO.
Yeah, and then there's always different widgets that you can use to unwind that kind of position. To the question of, are there facilities that are not used? Yes. You can't force someone to take money.
Yeah.
But after the services are rendered, there's a fair standards we have to ethically negotiate. You ethically negotiate. At the end of the day, it's still a business, and they want to get paid. And so you just come to a number, and that's that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier if you just go to the ones that are already accepting it. Because the balance bill noise is the noise that really affects you as the broker.
Yeah. So great questions. Again, finishing up, if you have any prospects you want to take a look at and see a full AmeriShare proposal, or a prospect that you'd like to see a level funded pilot score or evaluation on, send those over to us. Until next time, on our next career update, I'm Jason Powers, and this is Thomas Stein.
We'll see you.